So today Lucas is a month and a week old. He's actually in the back seat right now. Right here you can see his car seat cover. It's been rough, really rough. And the worst part is at nighttime. He seems to have the hardest time between, it used to be like midnight and 7 a.m. and now it's like between like 11 and 3 in the morning, 11 and 4 in the morning. So I don't know. It seems like he's getting closer to a more normal schedule, or like our schedule, instead of just being up whiny and cranky and screaming bloody or murder all night. So that's good. He is very healthy, and just to give you guys like a backstory or like a life update, he was born on December 9th, which is also Jordan's birthday and also Jacinda's birthday, and he was 8 pounds and 10 ounces, and he was the most beautiful baby boy I have ever seen in my entire life. I know everybody says that, but you really have to go through it, especially when it's your own kid, and it's completely different experience. And so yeah, we went to bed one night, and then I woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and I felt like I was peeing everywhere. And I wasn't peeing, my water had broke, but it felt like I peed my pants, and it was so gross, but it just kept coming and coming and coming, and so that was a new experience. But I wouldn't change anything that happened for the world, for anything. And so I was on my way to the bathroom, and I was just leaking everywhere, and it went all the way down the hallway, and I got into the bathroom and I stood there to like take my pants down, and puddle just right on the ground. It just, so that was pretty solid. And so I put a huge pad on. I went out and I bought these huge overnight maxi pad things, and they were huge. They were literally like a diaper. And so I cleaned myself up, and I wiping myself down, and I put one of the pads on, and I went into the room and woke Jordan up, and I was like, hey. And he had a hard time getting up, but I finally got him out of bed. He was like, what? I'm tired, what do you need? And I was like, so I think my water just broke. I'm like 99% sure. And he was like, what does that mean? And I was like, well, we have to go to the hospital, we're having a baby. So he got dressed, and we got all the stuff in the back of the car, and we drove to the hospital, and it was the most disgusting feeling because it just kept coming out and kept coming out, and it kept coming out. And I was like, we need to hurry up and get in there, I'm gonna pee my pants. And then he was like, it's not pee. And I said, it feels like I'm peeing my pants. It's not pee, but if we don't hurry up and get in there, stuff is gonna go everywhere, and it's gonna get all over the car, and it's gonna be gross, and it's gonna get hard to clean out. And so we drove down to the hospital and got to the like customer service desk. I don't know what you would call that, like the nurse's station. And she was like, hi, can I help you? And I was like, yeah, my water broke, and so we're here to have a baby. And then they took us into this room, and we had to fill out paperwork and wait for wristbands, and they had to check our IDs. And it's like, I'm having a baby, and we're waiting. And then they were training somebody, so we just stood there for literally like 5-6 minutes while she finished helping somebody else that she started helping when we first walked in, and I was like, what the heck? So we went back into the room, and there was a nurse in there, and long story short, because I don't want to give you guys all the details, I was in labor for, I think it was 36 hours, but I was only actively pushing for 45 minutes, which is insane, because I had asked the nurse, they said, well, how long do people push for? She was like, well, it could last up to like however long your body wants, like 8-10 hours. And I was like, no. And so I just prayed for a healthy delivery and a healthy pregnancy, and it was a really healthy pregnancy. The whole thing, it was just completely healthy, and all of his checkups, he did great. And so we got settled into the room, and then Jordan finally went out to the car and brought all of our stuff in. The amount of back pain that I had during labor was ridiculous. And they were like, yeah, your stomach's gonna hurt, it's gonna feel like your stomach's cramping, and you know, you're gonna be holding your stomach and you might throw up, so just be careful, and fair warning. And it was all back pain, the entire thing, the whole time. And Jordan, bless his heart, he was rubbing my lower back the entire time. And then his hands got super tired after rubbing for like 3 hours, and we had visitors come in, and so he was like, your mom's out there, I'm gonna go get her, tag team. And so Aunt Nell ended up rubbing my back, and then somewhere in there, Jacob, Jordan's brother, ended up like rubbing my back, and I don't even remember any of it. That's just what they said. And I guess I said some pretty great things after the epidural, and I wasn't gonna get an epidural, but it got so bad. I was like hunched over, like death hold, grabbing the side railing of the bed, and it was all bad. It was, no. I was like, I need an epidural. And then, well, the nurse had asked me, she was like, sweetie, are you ready for it? And I was like, no, I don't want one, I don't want one. So we waited another 10 minutes, and I was like, I never like screamed. I only screamed one time, and that's when they pulled his shoulders out, which I'll explain in a minute. But she came back in, and she was like, so what's going on? And I was like, I'm ready. I need it. It's bad. And I'd never cried so hard or so much in my entire life. And she was like, okay, we'll get him in here. So the anesthesiologist came in, and I called him the epidural man. And he was my lifesaver. But he came in there, and they sat me up on the side of the bed, and he shot all the way down my spine, down my back, like the whole thing. And so I was like I could feel it, but it didn't hurt. And I don't even know if he numbed me. I don't even know. I have no idea. And so he was leaving, and I guess I told Jordan to run out there and ask him where he got his hair done, because I loved his hair color and his haircut, and I wanted Jordan to have his hair exactly like that. And so which I didn't find out until later, but he didn't go ask him. That would have been weird. And so after that, not really a long time later, but a good amount of time later, I was like, I need to push, I need a nurse. And so we pushed the little call button on the bed, and nurse came in, and I was like, I feel like I need to push. And she was like, okay, well, push. And so we put the little things up, the leg holders on the end of the bed, and we put my legs in the stirrups, and I started pushing and practicing. And Jordan, such a sweetheart, he was there the entire time, start to finish, and it was amazing and wonderful. And I am so blessed to have him in my life. And he was just amazing, and he was so supportive, and he was like, all right, babe, you got this, do you need anything? Squeeze my hand. He was like, if you need to break it, then break it, we're in the right place, I can get it fixed. And he just kept telling me, you know, like, this is our baby, you're giving me my son, this is gonna be your little man, I love you, you got this, keep going. And he just kept going and going and going and going. And so finally, after like, not fake pushing, but pushing enough to where Lucas was ready to come out, one of the nurses called the doctor in, and it was not my doctor. She was not on call that night. So they called the doctor in, and she was like, all right, honey, well, now it's time to push. Actually, so when you feel like you're pushing as hard as you can, push harder. And I was like, how can I push harder than I feel like I already am pushing my hardest? And she was like, well, you're not pushing hard enough until you feel like you're gonna poop. And I started laughing, and I was like, what do you mean? Am I gonna poop? And she was like, well, I mean, it could happen. It's very possible. She said a lot of people end up pooping. And I was like, oh, I don't want to poop in the bed. And so that was interesting. But whew, so I was pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and yada yada yada. And the doctor was like, I can see his head. And Jordan got so excited, and he was like, I can see his head, I can see his hair, he's so beautiful. And I was like, oh, okay. Like in my head, and I didn't say anything out loud. I couldn't even talk. My back hurt so bad. And then I couldn't feel my left leg. So I was like, don't let go of my leg, it's gonna fall off the bed. Don't let go of my leg. And because Jordan was on my left side, so he was holding my leg like in the stirrup. And it was so funny. I could not feel my leg. And so his head was coming out, and Jordan was like, babe, you got this. He's like, you're almost there. His head's almost out. But he didn't know that their heads come out in like a cone shape at first. And so the doctor and the nurse both looked at him, and they were like, and she looked at me, and she was like, honey, you got a while, so keep pushing. And so you know how they usually pull baby shoulders out, like lift them up, turn them a little, and then pull the other one out? So they pull them out one at a time. Well, Lucas, he was a little stink butt, and he decided he wanted to glue his hands like this onto his face. Both of them, one right here, one right here. And so his shoulders were like stuck, and I kept pushing him out, and she was like, all right, this is gonna be really, really painful, but we have to do it. And I was like, okay. So she literally, like at the same time, pulled both shoulders out of my vagina, and it hurt so bad, and I thought I was gonna die. And then after she got the shoulders out, the rest of him just came out like super fast. And there was such an instantaneous relief. I had never felt so good in my life. And it was great. And then I heard him cry, and that was the most beautiful thing on the entire planet. I mean, now when I hear him cry, I'm like, oh my God, please stop. But when I heard him cry for the first time, it was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard in my life. And Jordan didn't cry, but he got emotional, and he looked at me, and he was like, good job, baby, you did it. We did it. And I said, we did it? What do you mean we? And he was like, you did it, but we did it. It takes two. And so one of the nurses took Lucas over to the little baby area. Whew. Sorry, I'm so tired. And she was getting him all fixed up, and then the doctor was still there, and she was waiting for the placenta to come out. And I guess that's supposed to hurt like super bad, and it didn't hurt at all. Like, there was no pain. And so so they got it out, and she was like, do you want to see it? And I was like, sure. So she like held it up, and it was huge, like massive. And I was like, and there was like veins on it, and it was just really gross. It was nasty. You should look up pictures of placentas because it's disgusting. And then she was like, do you want to keep it? And I was like, no, what would I keep that for? And she was like, well, some people eat it and some people want to bury it. And I was like, no, thanks. No. And so she was like, all right, well, we'll just dispose of it. And I was like, thanks. And so that all happened, and I didn't tear at all, which was what I was really, really worried about. I had a small little tear, like, what did she say, like 1.5 centimeters long, on my labia. I think that's where it was. I don't know, but I didn't tear at all, so that was good. And I didn't have to get stitches. She asked me if I wanted them, and I said, well, if it's 1.5 centimeters, do I really need them? She was like, no, but if you want them, we will give them to you. And I said, well, in your professional opinion, would you give me stitches? And she said, no, you should be fine. So I didn't get any stitches. And then in the hospital room, we stayed there, and it was the most amazing yet so tiring experience ever. And it was like up and down and up and down and up and down. And I tried breastfeeding, and he seemed to be doing great in the beginning, and then he stopped doing so great, and then he was fine, and then he had a hard time latching, and then the lactation consultant came in and we like went over everything and watched how I was breastfeeding, and she gave me some tips and like new holding positions, and like how you can like hand express and stuff like that. And she was so sweet and so nice. And so then she left, and then we had a whole bunch of visitors the entire time we were there. And I'm so thankful that everybody who came and was supportive and was there and happy and just held him and loved him. And it was such a moment of pure love for me, for Jordan, for Lucas. It was breathtaking. And just seeing his little face and how Jordan looked at him, it was special. And then after that, we ended up bringing him home. And I was like, what do you do with a baby when you bring him home? Like, what do you do? And Jordan was like, well, you feed him and change him and play with him and take care of him. And I was like, no, I get that, but like, what do you do with a baby? He's like, what do you mean? What do you do with a baby? So we just kept going back and forth and back and forth. And he was really good at first, and he slept all the time, and he never cried for anybody. And then he just went through this thing about, he's waking up right now. he just went through this thing about a week ago where it was like nonstop crying all the time, but it was only for Jordan and I. He would never cry for anybody else at anybody else's house, and that was so disheartening, and it hurt, and it made me feel like I couldn't take care of my own son. And then I went through this thing, which was postpartum depression, and I didn't think that I was going to have it, or that I was going to get it, and that I'd be fine, everything would be okay, and it wasn't. And I didn't realize that that's what it was until probably like a week ago. And I was sad all the time, and I was crying all the time, and I ended up not being able to breastfeed him because he couldn't latch, because my nipple shape changed, and we tried numbing cream, and my nipples just bled and bled and bled, and they cracked, and they were dry and sore, and it got so bad. Jordan came into the room one night, and he woke me up from a nap, and he was like, "Hey, are you ready to try again?" And I just lost it, and I broke down in tears, and I was like, "No, I don't want to do this anymore." And it was like a good 2-hour conversation. So that was pretty crazy. But so yeah, the next morning I woke up and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to breastfeed. He's not getting enough, because we went to the doctor for his first visit, and the doctor was like, "Oh, he's underweight. I want you to supplement, keep breastfeeding, but I want you to supplement as well." And then I just couldn't do it. The amount of food he was eating after we were giving him supplements was insane. I would feed him for 45 minutes at a time. And then even after that, he still drank a 2-ounce bottle. And then an hour after that, drank another 2-ounce bottle. And then an hour after that, I would breastfeed again for 45 minutes. And so I realized at that point that it wasn't anything that I was doing. I could produce the amount that he needed, but I could not give him the amount that he needed in the time that he needed it. And so I had talked to Jordan, and we decided that formula would be the best thing to do for the baby, and for me, and for Jordan, and for my sanity. And I was so unhappy when I was breastfeeding, not because I didn't want to breastfeed, but I could not give my son what he needed. And it made me so unhappy. And so upset all the time, and I would cry all day, every day. And so we decided that formula would be the best option for everybody's sake and for the health of our baby. And once we started giving him formula, he started putting the weight back on that he lost. And his doctor, we went in for his next visit, and he had gained all the weight back, and he was very, very healthy, and the doctor said he was doing amazing, and he was very impressed. And he was like, well, he's catching up from where he was at, so he's doing pretty great. You guys are doing a great job. Keep it up. I'm very proud of you. He's very healthy. You're doing a great job. And so we kept feeding him, and he ended up eating 4 ounces every 2 or 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours. And so a few days went by, and then he started eating more. So now he drinks 6 ounces every 4 or 5 hours, which, if you look at the chart for formula, the age and weight of the kid is a lot for a baby his age and his size. But he's that hungry, and the doctor said if he's hungry to just, I mean, like, obviously you want to try everything else first, and like calming him down, and maybe he just wants the binky, so try to give him the binky, and then if that doesn't work, then you give him food, which is what it always ended up being. So he really is that hungry, and so he's eating about 6 ounces every 4 or 5 hours, sometimes 6 if he's sleeping. And some people are like, oh, well, you need to wake him up from a nap and feed him. And yeah, but if he's sleeping, I'm going to let him sleep. I will feed him when he wakes up. He's obviously tired for a reason, so he needs to sleep. And everyone's like, well, you know, you need to wake him. And I'm like, well, he's my kid. And I decided with Jordan that that's what we wanted to do, so that's what we're going to do. And so now I feel like he's mine. And what I mean by that is, in the very beginning, I knew he was mine. I felt like he was mine. And then everybody started seeing him and hanging out with him and wanting to watch him. And everyone kept saying, thank you for bringing me my baby. And so there were so many people saying, my baby, my baby, my baby. I disassociated myself with Lucas because he wasn't my baby. I didn't feel like he was mine. Everybody else kept claiming him and saying that he was their baby when they said my baby, and that sounds stupid, but when everybody is telling you the same thing, you kind of start to believe it. So I disassociated with him, and so that was the week that he ended up staying with everybody else at everybody else's houses, and overnight, night after night after night, and we would see him during the daytime because I didn't want to take care of him if he wasn't mine. I didn't feel like he was my baby. And then Jordan and I had a heart-to-heart talk, and we discussed that, and I don't know what changed, but it just clicked. And I was like, yeah, he's my baby. So we've been great ever since then, and figuring all of that out. It's been rough. It's been hard for sure. But it's so worth it. He's so beautiful. He's so healthy. He's such an amazing kid. Yes, he cries for 3 hours at a time. Yes, nighttime is hell, and it's hard, and it's so much work. Yeah, he might have the stinkiest poopy diapers and the craziest pees, and he might pee all over himself, but he's such a good baby. He's such a good kid, and I love him so much. And I'm sorry this road is kind of bumpy, so that's why it's shaking, but he's such a good baby, and I'm so in love with him. And so is Jordan, and it's so cute. Jordan tells me every day, he's like, I love him so much, babe. And I'm like, I know, you tell me all the time. And their favorite thing is to cuddle, and Jordan will have him right here on his chest, and they'll be laying on the couch together watching Moana or Trolls or something, and it's so cute. And I love them both so much, and Jordan and I have been through a lot, but he's so worth it. And Jordan's been supportive through the entire thing, and they're both just so amazing. I'm so lucky to have Jordan, to have Lucas. I thought Jordan was my entire world, and then Lucas got here, and now he's my entire world, and they both just live in it, and they make me so happy. So that's kind of it for now, and I'll talk to you guys soon.